Episode 20, the night of the eclipse. The following night, a colossal moon, as red as blood, hung in the sky. The lunar eclipse was beginning. An ominous silence had fallen over Silver Creek Village, and the people were all huddled in their homes, trembling in fear. Only barren Thornfield's mine was lit as bright as day by hundreds of torches. Ryan, Corin, and Amara were hidden behind a rock on a hill overlooking the mine entrance, surveying the situation. Heavily armed soldiers stood guard at the entrance, and groups of people in black robes were filing inside. They were the acolytes of the Shadow Cult, who had sworn allegiance to the Baron. It's impossible to go through the front gate. We have to use the ventilation shaft I told you about. Guided by Alara, they moved to the side cliff of the mine. Midway up the cliff, hidden by bushes, was a small cave-like opening. It was an old ventilation shaft used to circulate air inside the mine. If we go in here, it connects to the third level of the mine. The heart is on the lowest level, the seventh. The three of them entered the narrow shaft. The inside was filled with cobwebs and dust, and bats flew about with fluttering wings. After crawling for a long time, they finally found a rusted iron ladder. The ladder led precariously down into a massive open cavern within the mine. Looking down, they could see the entire interior of the mine at a glance. Countless torches illuminated the cavern walls, and cultists and soldiers were moving about busily. It was as if they had entered a giant ambient. We have to be careful going down. If we make a single sound, it's over. They carefully descended the ladder. Fortunately, thanks to the ambient noise, their movements went undetected. When they reached the third level, they hid their bodies behind some abandoned mining equipment. To get to the seventh level, we have to use the central elevator. But that's the most heavily guarded place, Lara whispered. Then we'll have to find another way. Ryan's eyes gleamed. Look over there. Where he pointed, the rails for a huge cart used to transport ore, a mine cart, had been installed. The rails snaked their way down to the seventh level. We're riding that down, Lauren asked with a look of disbelief. Yes, it's the fastest way, and the one they'll least expect. They moved towards the mine cart, avoiding the eyes of the guards. As luck would have it, an empty cart was waiting to depart. The three of them quickly hid inside. A moment later, the miner pulled the lever, and the cart began to slide down with a lurch. The speed of the minecart was faster than they could have imagined. The wind whipped past their cheeks, and the surrounding scenery flew by in a blur. It felt like a roller coaster ride into hell. This is quite fun, Warren shouted, but his voice was lost in the sound of the wind. After some time, the cart finally slowed down and arrived at the seventh level. The scene here was completely different from the upper levels. A vast natural cavern appeared, its walls engraved with strange ancient runes. And in the center of the cavern, a grand altar had been erected. On the altar, the hearthstone rested, glowing eerily as it bathed in the red moonlight. Baron Thornfield and the shadow alchemist, Galen, stood before the altar, surrounded by hundreds of cultists who were preparing for some kind of ritual. We're not too late, Rian said in a low voice. Just as they were about to get out of the cart, a cold voice came from behind them. That's far enough, you rats. When they turned, the manor's chief of the guards was standing there, leading a group of his men. He had a cruel smile on his scarred face. They had been spotted on their way down. prepared a special gift for you." At the chief's gesture, the soldiers surrounded them. There was no escape. They were completely trapped in the deepest part of the mine, in the heart of the enemy's territory. On the altar, the Baron, having spotted them, smiled coldly and shouted, "You've arrived just in time, Knight of the Holy Sword. Your noble blood will serve as the final sacrifice for the advent of our great master." The lunar eclipse reached its peak, and a beam of red moonlight shone down through a fissure in the cavern's ceiling, illuminating the altar perfectly. The final act of the terrible ritual was about to begin. Episode 21, The Battle for the Heart. "All of you get them. The knight must be taken alive." At the Baron's command, the guards charged forward with a unified roar. In an instant, Rian, Lauren, and Alara were surrounded. "I'll take the front," Lauren roared, drawing his great sword. He was no longer a naive country knight. He was the descendant of an ancient hero, burning with a sense of duty to save his friend and the world. As his sword scythed through the air, a heavy wind of steel sent two charging soldiers flying like paper dolls. "I've got the rear," Lara shouted, drawing the bow from her back. She moved with a dancer's grace, evading the enemy's attacks while letting her arrows fly with deadly precision. Her arrows flew like phantoms in the darkness, unerringly finding weak points like the visors of helmets or the joints of armor. While providing cover for their fight, Rian quickly surveyed the terrain. He was no warrior. His weapons were not a sword or a bow, but his eye for reading the board and the cunning to flip it. His gaze fell upon the numerous piles of tears of the stars, or stacked around the altar, and the alchemical tools laid out beside them. And on the altar, Kaelin preparing to start the ritual, and the Baron watching him with a sneer. "I have to destroy that heartstone, but it's nearly impossible to even approach the Baron and Kaelin while they're guarding it. I need to shake things up. I have to divert their attention from us to something else." Ryan made his decision, while Lauren and Alara bought him time. He secretly broke away from the battlefield and headed for the alchemy equipment. There, he found jars of sulfur powder, charcoal, and bottles filled with unidentifiable liquids. In the back alleys of Velmore, he had once learned a few tricks while trying to swindle a bomb-making expert. "All right, let's get this party started." Ryan skillfully mixed the powders and poured in the liquids, creating a few crude but powerful smoke bombs and explosives. Meanwhile, Lauren and Alara were fighting desperately, but they were vastly outnumbered. More and more scratches appeared on Lauren's armor, and Alara's quiver was almost empty. The chief of the guard sneered at their exhausted state. "It's over now, my heroic masters." Just as the chief raised his giant axe to deliver a final blow to Lauren, a voice rang out, "A present for you, villains." With Ryan's shout, a smoke bomb of his creation flew into the middle of the soldiers and exploded. With a loud bang, thick smoke engulfed the entire cavern. The soldiers, caught off guard by the sudden smoke, began to cough and stumble about in confusion. Now, using the smoke as cover, Ryan grabbed his remaining bombs and charged towards the altar. The Baron and Kaelin were stunned to see Ryan bursting out of the smoke. "You dare!" Kaelin swung his staff, launching a bolt of dark magic, but Ryan dodged it with a desperate roll. He threw his bomb right at the base of the altar, into the largest pile of Tears of the Stars ore. sooner had Ryan shout ended than a massive explosion erupted with a deafening roar. The tears of the stars all reacted with the magic bomb, setting off a chain reaction of explosions. The entire cavern shook as if it would collapse, and the altar began to crack from the force of the blast. The ritual was interrupted. The heartstone, suffering an unstable energy overload, let out a blood-curdling shriek. And oh, my great work, Galen cried out in despair. The Baron's face contorted with fury. I'll tear you apart with my own hands. The Baron drew a rude blade, which pulsed with the dark energy from his belt and charged at Ryan. A sinister aura, unbelievable for a mere human, radiated from his body. He had already accepted the power of the Shadow God, becoming a half-human, half-demon creature. Ryan parried his attack with his dagger, but he was no match. After a few blows, his weapon was knocked from his hand, and he fell to the floor. Just as the Baron was about to plunge his sword into Ryan's heart, a giant shadow moved between them. Get your hands off, my friend. It was Borin. He had charged through the smoke and blocked the Baron's attack with his greatsword. The Knight of the Holy Sword and the Servant of the Shadow had finally come face to face. The cavern was collapsing, and the heartstone was overloading. Every